All right, Fabrizio, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Mark. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Good, good. A little cold, but that's part of living in the Northeast this time of the year. You?
Warm in Los Angeles, thank you very much. And so I'm delighted that we're going to talk a little bit about who you are and as a not only close friend but strategic partner to Sadovnick Partners, what you offer your clients. So could you just tell everybody, who you are, a little bit about your background?
My name is Fabrizio Busso-Campana. I am currently one of the partners at N2S Marketing Group. I'm also an advisor at Crystal Strategic Consulting Solution Group. And my background is a bit varied, but has always been in and around developing solutions and managing projects. I have a significant amount of my professional experiences in the hospitality industry, having worked with companies such as Royal Caribbean Cruise Lines as they started their growth spurt. Then I was recruited by Celebrity Cruises. Ended up leaving Celebrity Cruises several years later when they were bought out by Royal Caribbean. Took a segue, went into commodities for a few years internationally, then came back into the industry and was recruited by Club Med. I ran Club Med North America for a little bit over 2 years as they reorganized. And then I moved over to MGM Grand Corporation, helping them to integrate the New York Hotel and Casino as the general manager at the time. After that assignment, I decided that I wanted to leave the corporate world altogether and establish more in earnest something that I've been doing, let's just call it almost moonlighting, but more on the private side, which was consulting. I did quite a bit of consulting throughout all my professional years, and that basically was the beginning of what has been a very interesting run that's now going on 12 years with a couple of different entities, and it's always been in and around, as I said at the beginning, of who I am and what I do. Uh, Projects, operations in a company, really helping them grow, putting the right pieces together, whether they have to be created from scratch or whether they were there, they just need to be reorganized. It's really something that it's very near and dear to my heart. I've been very lucky to work with some brilliant people and have some great partners and friends and mentors, you included. And currently, our firm, the two firms that I'm involved with, have a variety of clients, mostly B2B. We've done very selective B2C, but with household names that you've probably heard, the likes of BMW, Mini Cooper, Dorat Foods, if you're a foodie, and some larger companies like American Pharmaceuticals, Roche Diagnostics, and so on and so forth. So it's been really, really interesting. And now, being a strategic partner of your firm, it's been very, very interesting because really it opens up a different understanding of what networking and people relationships are like.
Well, one thing I've been impressed with, and aside from being a friend and how it makes sense business-wise, is you are a strategic resolution guy. You do help my clients resolve issues and take advantage of opportunities. So they've been very appreciative of that. And I wanted to ask you, as a summary, could you give us a story maybe of one of your most unique experiences, challenging experiences in your business life?
Well, unique and challenging. I probably, I always have to refer back to my 2 years, 2.5 years at Club Med. It was one of the most monumentally difficult, yet equally enjoyable, equally frustrating, and equally challenging assignments that I've ever been involved in. I was brought to work for the company when they had basically had a huge ownership brouhaha, let's call it. It was one of these Black Knight takeovers where the original founders were tossed out, as well as the original shareholders. And the new ownership structure kept quite a bit of the senior management, but um, wanted to remove quite a bit of what had become, and what still, I mean, still is to this day, but not as strong, um, the single-focused French mentality of doing business, which, every country, every culture has that, how can I say, can be blamed of doing that. But the French have a particular way of thinking and looking at things because, let's face it, they're French. Charles de Gaulle used to say that it was very difficult to govern the French because how could you govern a people where the country had over 600 different types of cheese? So that is something that was true within Club Med because it was a global company. At the time that I started working for them, I was in charge of the American sector. I was brought on board and I was tasked, not to my knowledge, the day after I signed the contract, to close their operations offices in Scottsdale and fire 325 people and put together a new team that was going to be running the company in the Americas, not from Scottsdale, Arizona, but from Miami, Florida. So I had to fire a team of people. I had to hire a brand new team of people. And in the process of doing so, I had to manage 19 hotels from St. Lucia to Tahiti. I know, don't say it, my life was rough. Yeah. And I had to do so while being subject to the whims of headquarters in Paris, who you had to work as an employee based on their time zone. So that was very, very interesting. It was very, very interesting, not just in that aspect, but also the fact that part of what I was entrusted with was to bring the way of running the business, the way of organizing the business and managing the people based on what the American style of business is, which is completely different than, let alone, the European style or the Asian style or the Middle Eastern style, but the French style as a whole. So here we had these cultural silos that basically had to learn how to cohabitate with each other because, oddly enough, of all of these people that were let go in the United States and everything else, 90% of them were all French expats. So they might have had residency cards or permanent work permits or, naturalized American citizens, but they all still had a French mentality. So all of a sudden, that was completely replaced by a management team that was almost solely and exclusively made up of American executives. Okay, and our way of working is much different than that of anybody else in the world. Our work ethics, our work habits. Right. We'll put 80-hour work weeks because that's just what we do. The French will put 32 and a half hours because they have lunch, and then you have Fridays that you leave early, then you have the Catholic holidays, the Jewish holidays, then you have the state holidays and everything else in between, which is not bad. It's it's a very interesting, it's great because being Italian myself, I grew up like that. But it was just very interesting because we had to find, more often than not, most of our meetings, whether it was with us going to headquarters coming to us, or even back then the company had spent a monumental amount of money setting up a telepresence facility when Cisco first launched telepresence. Every one of the meetings was not, here's the agenda, let's get down to business. Every one of the meetings began with the cordialities, the salutations, then the negotiations on how the agenda was going to be handled, and then it was basically almost like a negotiation of a peace treaty, or I don't know. Actually, it was a negotiation of a peace treaty most of the time. So it was really, really interesting. It was definitely a learning experience for me. I mean, I'm proud to say that to this day, a lot of the things that my team and I put together are still in place, particularly something that's called yield management, revenue management, which is just a way of hedging and maximizing profits based on booking patterns, and other things, that we fought tooth and nail at the time, which which a lot of it had to do with the operations of the villages themselves. At the time, just the headquarters was not ready to embrace that, because they thought that the French way of serving hospitality was the way to go, and they couldn't understand that Americans, even in the late 1990s, early 2000s, they needed to have internet, they needed to have cable TV, they needed to have air conditioning. And yes, it was great that the French like to rough it out a little bit, but that was not attractive to the Americans, and for the product to be, the product had lost its novelty of the late 70s, early 80s, when Club Med basically was a free for all. So it was very, very interesting. It's something that definitely I was able to leverage everything that I had learned. I had to literally develop my own. I don't know if you remember the cartoon Felix the Cat with his magic bag. I continuously had to walk around with one of those, and as did my team members, to deal with a lot of the things that came up. But it really was just such an amazing experience, because it was so global, and I can't even say it was so local. It was global, and it was very personal at the same time in so many different aspects.
Well, as they say, vive la différence, right?
Oh, vive la différence. Bien sûr.
Hey, listen, thanks so much, and I definitely appreciate you as a strategic partner.
Thank you very much, Mark.